Welcome to In the Black, the podcast that shines a light on resilience, transformation, and the power of reinvention. I'm Araceli, and each week my co-host Shannon and I sit down with incredible women who have faced some of life's hardest challenges, from personal setbacks to societal obstacles, and have emerged on the other side stronger, driven, and ready to make a difference.
On In the Black, we celebrate these stories of strength and success, diving deep into the journeys of women who turned pain into purpose, adversity into action, and now dedicate themselves to making the world a better place in their own way. They're here to inspire, share hard-earned wisdom, and remind us all, no matter how dark things may seem, life is cyclical and dawn is coming. So whether you're looking for inspiration, motivation, or just a reminder that change is always possible, this is the podcast for you. Welcome to In the Black.
Welcome. Sylvia is a nomadic, multidisciplinary artist whose vivid murals and visionary works span continents, but her most powerful masterpiece is her own rebirth. After a car accident left her with a traumatic brain injury, Sylvia was forced to rebuild her life and business from the ground up, navigating the world with a new brain, a new pace, and the often invisible challenges of healing. Her art, once driven by momentum, is now shaped by intention. Every brushstroke a lesson in surrender, every project a testament to perseverance. Sylvia's work bridges spirit and nature, creating spaces that teach, uplift, and connect. From small towns to city walls, her mission is simple. Beauty belongs everywhere, and healing is an art form. Welcome, Sylvia.
Thank you
so much
for
for
having
coming
me
on today.
Thank you for that beautiful introduction. I'm so touched.
Yeah, well, we'll just kind of walk through your journey if you're okay with that, and kind of just start asking questions and see where this leads.
Of course.
Let's just start with the moment that everything changed for you. Can you take us back to the car accident and kind of what your life looked like before the car accident?
Yeah, so September 30th, 2022, my little Toyota Corolla was hit by a semi-truck. And the thing is, I don't have any memory of the accident itself, so I can't tell you that much about what happened immediately leading up to it. I can say that 2022 was a really good year for me. At that point, that had been like the most successful mural painting year for me thus far. Had some really amazing projects and just lots of momentum going. But then, I'm never going to know exactly what happened, but I do know that leading up to the accident, I was definitely in kind of a mental health down slump. And so I'm always going to wonder if that contributed, if that affected my reaction times, but it's just one of those things where I'm never going to know, and I'm going to drive myself crazy trying to understand it. It just kind of feels almost like it happened to someone else. But the thing about my trauma is that I don't have PTSD from the event itself. It's not the actual collision that caused the trauma. It was everything that came after. I was in the hospital for 6 weeks initially, and then in and out of the ER for a year. And many surgeries and many healthcare workers. So the recovery process leaves its own sort of trauma. And so that's been a big part of, my journey is just it wasn't like acute injuries and things like that I had to heal from. It was just how to approach the process of healing in the first place. So that's my life beforehand was going pretty well. I was living in Western Wisconsin at the time, got hit on a small country highway, crossing another small country highway. It's I've always been a good driver. I've always never had even a parking ticket before that. And so that's why it's I'll drive myself crazy trying to wrap my mind around the circumstances of that accident. All I can do is take life as it comes and try to deal with what comes next.
So you don't remember what happened. Were you in a coma for a long time, or did you remember waking up in the hospital and like not knowing what happened, and then people had to fill you in, or what was that like?
Yeah. So I wasn't in a coma. I was intubated at first, and it wasn't like I just woke up in the hospital. I came back into awareness over a period of days and weeks. The first month after my accident is very, very spotty. The interesting thing is a month or two prior to my accident is also very spotty. So yeah, it doesn't happen like it does in the movies where you just wake up in a hospital bed and have like a chunk of time missing or something like that. It's not that clear cut, but
Yeah, I was just curious too. When were you like, did you have to be told what happened? Like, Sylvia, you were in a car accident. This is why you're in a hospital or something. Or was it kind of like you already knew what happened?
I mean, I'm sure it was explained to me, but I had all my support system around me. It was clear that I was in a hospital. It's clear that I was being taken care of. And so I didn't wake up in a state of anxiety of like, what's wrong? What happened? I don't know. And I can't really speak to like exactly what that felt like because my memories of that are so spotty. But yeah, and the funny thing is that my family and my partner have all said that like in those early weeks I was like kind of an angel. Like I was just like smiling and like happy that everyone was helping me, and I was just lying there, didn't have to do anything for myself. So I think I enjoyed it on some level.
That's awesome. I love that. I don't have a whole lot of recollection of when I woke up either.
Yeah, what was that like for you?
Yeah, I have very spotty memories. So I remember leading up to the balcony incident and crawling up the steps. And I don't remember the second time that I went off. Like, but then I remember them putting me in the hospital and saying that they were going to take my kids with me. And then I don't remember anything until later in the hospital, and my kids were not in the room, and I freaked out.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's very like off and on. And I went to 18 months of rehab for mine. I know that yours was a bit more intense, especially at the beginning, than what I had to go through.
Yeah, and that just makes me think, I hadn't really put this together, that like my whole immediate support system was there when I woke up. My parents, my brother flew back from, he was living out west at the time, and my partner was there. And I think it's possible that if that hadn't been the case, that I'm like, where is Josh? Like, why isn't he here? Where is my mom? That would have caused a lot more anxiety. But I didn't know what was going on. But every time I looked around the room, I see reassuring faces, and so that probably really helped, bootstart my recovery, my reestablishing that sense of self.
Yeah, I love your relationship with your family. I just like having met your brother and seeing you guys together. You guys are
I forgot you met Oliver.
Yeah, you guys are just so cute. So, what do you think were the most immediate and unexpected challenges of living with your TBI? Like physically, mentally, emotionally, what were some of the things that you faced with that?
Oh man, where do I start? I think one of the hard things about having a brain injury is like I feel so grateful all the time that like I still feel like myself. I never lost that sense of self. I never stopped understanding things or knowing I feel like I'm still viewing the world through the same lens that I always was. And I have so much gratitude for that. And at the same time, that makes you sort of blind to your own changes and deficits and things like that. And I definitely am guilty of like digging my feet in and oh no, I'm fine. So the main things for me at this point are the emotional regulation is very difficult for me, and executive function, just knowing how to prioritize tasks and compartmentalize things in my life. And yeah, so in the beginning, I mean, I couldn't take care of myself. It was a good while before I was even cooking for myself and that sort of thing. You know, I could bathe, I could walk, I could, and I did recover those things pretty quickly. The original neurologist who saw me like at the ER kind of thought I was going to be way worse off than I ended up being. And his initial report that he gave to my parents, I didn't see until like many, many months later. And when I did read it, like that kind of broke me, because it was like imagining what that put my loved ones through, to basically be told that she might be a vegetable. But then he came into the room a day or two later, saw that I was already conscious and talking and interacting with people, and was like, oh no, this is the evidence that's a lot more important than like the imaging is. And I was already up to walking within a few days. But yeah, it's crazy to think about how different it could have ended up, how much worse things could have been. And, you know, obviously I feel grateful for what that means in my own life. And I also just have so much gratitude that that was not the reality that my loved ones were left with. They had this phrase in the beginning of like, to try to comfort each other, of like, we have to accept that Sylvia 1.0 is gone, but Sylvia 2.0 is going to be great, and we are excited to meet her, which is a beautiful way of framing it. And then since then, my brother had said that to me. He's like, I'm so glad that that wasn't more of the reality, that you're just like a completely different person than you were before the accident. Because they were preparing themselves for that, you know? And I am a different person in a lot of ways, but yeah, I'm still me. I'm still the same person looking out through my eyes.
Now, remind me where your brain injury is.
So I didn't have an acute brain bleed. I had what's called a diffuse axonal traumatic brain injury, which is a shearing of the white matter on the outside of your brain. So basically my brain twirled in its casing. And your axons on the outside of your brain are what affect executive function, which in turn is emotional regulation and all of that. So I didn't have like one specific bleed that creates one sort of deficit like that. It's a little broader. It's more of a holistic deficit. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, I was trying to remember that before we got on here, and I was like, I know we have talked about this before, but obviously my memory is not great. So
for years now, I've referred to it as my bonk, the bonk to the head. So yeah, so I also, you know, have a bit of bonk brain and don't always remember the conversations that we've already had. So remind me where your bleed was.
Prefrontal cortex on the right side.
Okay, yeah, I kind of remember.
So it affected my language and speech and memory primarily.
Wow.
I feel like mine would be considered a bonk. Your guys's would be something greater than a bonk. Like, I don't know that you can qualify that as a
Well, that's
bonk.
the funny thing also, because it wasn't actually like just a bonk. It was a twirl. I don't know. But still, was it like, because in the beginning we were like, it's too depressing to just keep calling it the car accident or like the crash, whatever. And so when I finally came up with that, like that's honestly one of the things of my recovery that I'm like the most proud of, is just like having thought to start calling it the bonk. Just makes it feel lighter, you know?
Yes. I love that. So just out of curiosity, your recovery, you said it took a while to, cook and go back and do some things. How long did that take? Was that a year worth of working towards that? Or what was the timeline? Do you know?
No, I would say within the first few months, I was self-sufficient in terms of I wasn't gonna go hungry. I wasn't gonna forget to turn off the stove or I could have lived by myself if I had been forced to. So I'd say that sort of thing didn't take all that long. Probably within the first 6 months, I had most of those, general functions available to me at least. It's more how it all fits together and being able to know how to conduct myself in the world, to know how to prioritize things and understand the world around me. It's not as much that, and I didn't end up with any motor deficits. Well, very, very, very minor. My balance is fine. My coordination is mostly fine. So I'm very, very grateful for that. It wasn't, my physical body was very minorly affected. The only other physical trauma that I have from my accident is I had a traumatic intubation. I was intubated roadside. I wasn't breathing when they found me. And it created a bunch of scarring in my throat, which closed up my larynx. I basically don't have a lot of space in my throat anymore. So if you hear me breathing heavily, I didn't just run up a flight of stairs. I just kind of what I sound like now.
That actually takes us into the next question of, you had to rebuild, so you were a muralist before this happened. Did you know you wanted to go back to that, or were you kind of lost there for a second? So, you had to rebuild not only your body, but your art and your business. So what did that process look like, and where did you find the strength to start again?
Yeah, great question. It was definitely slow going because turns out running your own business is a little bit harder with a brain injury. But I am so, so grateful that I never lost my will or my ability to create. Like when I have the projects that I have had since my accident, I still feel that same access to the creative inspiration that I always have, in terms of I see a wall and I know what I want to put on it. That's just the way my creative brain works. So yeah, I think out all the time that wasn't taken from me. At the same time, I was 26 when the accident happened. I would never have claimed to have the whole adulting thing fully figured out prior to that. So part of it is acute trauma recovery, but part of it's also just ongoing neuroplasticity and building the sort of life that I want for myself. So prior to my accident, was I 100% certain that I wanted to be a mural artist for the rest of my life? Definitely not. But it's something that really lit me up and that continues to provide that inspiration and excitement for me. So I feel really lucky that wasn't taken away from me.
So as a fellow creative who, I don't know, prior to my brain injury, I feel like I had very much lost my creative spark. And I don't know if that was from the situation that I was in, or because I designed dresses and made paper dolls and stuff as a kid, but I really hadn't painted at all or anything like that until after my brain injury. And I'm just curious.
That was sure.
Yeah. So I'm just curious, did you see your art change after the accident?
Maybe less than you might expect. If anything, it was more that my existing creative style, creative practice was really a source of comfort for me and something that I knew I could return to. And it felt familiar, it felt regulating, and especially I love painting large scale. It's really hard for me to sit down at a little blank white rectangle and know what to put on it. I like the freedom of painting whole walls and big canvases and big spaces. And so in that sense, So the very first time that I painted basically anything after my accident, I just painted the door at our house. There's this door that we know we're gonna have to replace at some point. So like, even if it turns out bad, it's just a good practice canvas. But it went great. I feel like what I designed is not, I don't know, and it's not a break from my existing creative style. And so that was really beautiful to see that those same creative practices, that same sort of aesthetic is still something that speaks to me in that way, because that further affirms that, like, I don't know, some of those neural networks still exist.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how did your new pace, because we've talked about the executive function and how that has impacted like trying to run a business, and I know that struggle very, very well. So how did your new pace and limitations, how did that reshape your creative voice, or how has that changed the art business for you?
Yeah, great question. I just need to be a lot more guarded with my energy than I ever used to. And I'd been doing this for long enough that I was already somewhat strict with that. Like when I'm on site, I don't do more than 5, ideally 4-hour days, because I just know that I will burn myself out and then I'll need to take a day off. But yeah, I've just had to become really strict with myself about that, in terms of like knowing that I have a limited amount to give, and how many projects I can do and how quickly I can get them done. And yeah, just the amount of stuff that I can juggle and still apply myself to things effectively has shrunk. So I just need to be realistic with myself, but that doesn't mean I can't still accomplish amazing things. I mean, Shannon helped me with a mural this last fall, which was my biggest one to date. Over 2,000 square feet. So that was a huge accomplishment. Never done something like that. Bonk. So I'm back.
Yeah, that was so much fun. I'm so glad that I came to do that.
Yeah, I'm so glad you were able to be part of that. It was really a beautiful project, but it was a beautiful collaboration. And I'm just excused to bring us together in that way. And yeah, I'm so glad that you came.
Many people suffer from invisible injuries or internal battles. How do you cope with the unseen parts of your healing? And how do you advocate for yourself in a world that often doesn't understand?
Wow, that's a good question, because obviously a brain injury is an unseen injury. And just one funny thing to that point, it was so funny to me how many people saw me for the first time after my accident, usually, within that first year, and said something to the degree of, wow, you look exactly the same. And I'm like, yeah, well, it was all up here. And I know that comes from a good place, and people are saying, oh, I'm so glad that you don't seem to look all wonky, or like you're not aware or understanding the world. But yeah, it's a good point. It's like, how do you communicate those unseen challenges to people? And the majority of my recovery, I was able to. So I've been living at my partner's cabin in Western Wisconsin, which has been a beautiful, beautiful, peaceful place to recover, but somewhat isolated, or in a good way and bad, in that but it was good that I was able to really get a huge head start on my healing before I have to look at how that fits into my place in the wider world. And now I'm living in St. Paul, Minnesota. And so that is the opposite, because I do see, seeing dozens of people every day. And
So when you think about like the executive dysfunction and the things that go along with having a brain injury, right? I think maybe to Araceli's point, um, how do you advocate for yourself? I know there was a situation even during the time that we were working on the mural together where executive function issues came up, and it caused some dysregulation. And like a lot of times in my world, people expect me to still be the same person, or to still be basically superhuman. And I know that I'm way more limited now, right? And so when situations like that come up, how do you specifically advocate for yourself? How do you say, hey, things are different. Hey, I can't do that. Because I struggle with that. And so
Mhm.
I'm very curious how you create those boundaries and keep yourself in a safe space.
Yeah, I'd say for me, it's honestly been less about communicating my deficits to other people and more just about um, really honing my skills on like the self-regulation and learning how to handle myself in those moments. And I have learned such a crazy amount during my recovery, and I feel really blessed that I've been able to have this quite slow, intentional recovery, and I have a beautiful support system. And I've learned so much. And then a year ago, I did a yoga teacher training that was specifically, so it has a somatic leadership element. And somatics is kind of about sensory based healing, about listening to, okay, so my kind of elevator pitch for it is removing the separation between what you are feeling and emotions and things that we're experiencing, and then just sensations in your body. So as opposed to, I feel anxious right now, I am experiencing some tightness in my chest and my head is swirling and whatever it may be. And so that's just an example of like all the stuff that I've been learning that I'm like, wow, this would have helped me prior to my accident. Like there's so much cognitive and psychological and self-regulation tools, and then physical stuff as well, myofascial release, and I've got a whole long list. And then yeah, I decided like as I need to be able to say thanks for my people who have been supporting me for the chance to have this really slow, intentional recovery. And so now I'm trying to pay it forward. I'm trying to help other people with help other people learn those same tools. So for me, it isn't about how do I warn other people as to like where I'm at now. It's more just how do I make the most of it? How do I, it's all about just adjusting to the new normal, you know? And then everything that I'm learning through that process, I want to be able to aid others in doing the same. That like we don't have to apologize for the reality of our cognitive function. All we need to do is figure out how that fits into the world, figure out how we can still be of benefit and still be in relationship and still create and give back and all of that. So I guess I don't feel a lot of need to explain myself in that sense if I am handling myself, if I am taking steps to be the best version of myself that I know I can be today. And it's also awesome to get to that point finally where I don't have to tell everyone about my brain injury. I still often do with like large painting clients and things where there's enough at stake that it's worth it. I'm not embarrassed to tell people. But just the fact that like, yeah, that it's not necessary, that it's not always relevant. Like I couldn't have even imagined that 2 years ago. So that feels good.
Nice, well said, for sure.
I think that talking about the growth and stuff, when I started out, I was basically nonverbal. And still, if I get more stressed or tense than I should, then a lot of times I'll go nonverbal and I can't create words. And so it is interesting getting to a place where you're like, oh, I don't have to explain this to people anymore because it doesn't happen as much anymore. And so it's usually only people in my very intimate circle that ever see me that way now.
Yeah.
And so that moment when you realize, oh, I don't necessarily have to explain is actually a huge one. It was for me because it took 9.5 years for me to get to that place.
Oh. And do you feel like that confidence came just from your improved function and, lower level of deficit, or is it also just the process of regaining that confidence and like carrying yourself with less shame around the deficits?
I think it's a combination of both because I did feel like I had to explain and apologize quite a bit because my ability to communicate was almost solely through writing starting out. And so getting to a point where I could verbally communicate with people, I felt like I did need to explain that a little bit more. Um, and so even now, sometimes I'm like, maybe I should have explained that. But I also think that, and I do struggle with coming to terms with the limitations that I have currently because I do still experience numerous limitations because parts of my brain never reactivated after my brain injury.
Yeah, and it's just like it's not linear in any sense, like both in terms of the healing, just the cognitive function, but especially like the way that we feel about ourselves. Like some days I'm so proud of everything that I've overcome, and some days I'm just like completely getting down on myself that like, how am I not better yet? And that's okay. You know, we need to accept that those backslides are part of the upward trajectory of our healing.
Yeah, but
And
I
so,
think it's beautiful how you put that. So I just wanted to really emphasize that.
I was just thinking I'm going to define executive function because I don't think that's not a term that I really knew. Set of cognitive, emotional, and motor skills that helps people manage everyday tasks and achieve goals. Include the ability to plan, solve problems, and adapt to new situations, manage social interactions. Executive functions are controlled by the frontal lobe of the brain and are essential for mental and physical health. I don't know. I feel like that sounds pretty general. Basically just saying your brain's ability to work. But yeah, it's like if you think about there being a control panel of your brain, you know, I think we talked about the Inside Out movie at some point. It's like suddenly there's no one in charge. There's all these different emotions and people like with their own goals and agendas, and there's no manager, you know, there's no one calling the shots anymore. And so you're just pulled in every which way direction.
So, what tools, practices, or routines helped you most in your recovery, mentally, spiritually, or artistically, that others might find useful in their own healing?
Well, art and creativity have been a huge part of my healing process. Not just the art that I'm creating for my job, because that's kind of different because that has like deliverables. I feel like there's a specific end goal to like murals and things like that, but also yoga and the physical healing practices that I've learned. I mean, I see it all as related, that it's like the way that creativity has healed me has been beyond just visual arts. It's also about learning to get back in touch with my body. And I mean, that was a huge thing for me. I after the first year of my recovery, I mean, I was so proud of everything that my body overcame and how far I had come, but it left me completely disconnected from my body. Like I just was completely dissociated. And so that process of exploring all these different practices, it wasn't just one thing that like solved it. It was a plethora of things. And so exploring all these things that helped me to, again, feel at home in my own body also made me aware of how common that is for people to feel that physical dissociation. And so that's another reason for like, I want to pay it forward. I want to help people with everything that I've learned, because yeah, there's just so much that I've learned through my recovery that would have helped me prior to my accident that I didn't know that I needed then. So yeah, yoga has been a huge part of it, and specifically somatic related practices, really tuning into physical sensations in the body, and getting out of the thinking mind and into that body intelligence that like just unlocked a whole new world for me. My various mindfulness practices, the one that was really big for me is yoga nidra, which is like it's a form of non-sleep deep rest. It's basically like a pseudo sleep, putting you on a different brain wave than our waking brain wave. But it usually consists of a very extensive body scan, which was a really helpful thing for me to be able to feel my body again. Because that interoception and proprioception was just kind of gone. And then I had a fun moment with that just felt like such a win, because you're doing these extensive body scans, and it tells you to like feel different parts of your body. They call it a rotation of consciousness. Going up and down each limb and all these different places. And there was one day that I was doing it that I can still remember this clearly. I started to go down my right arm. So it's like, feel your right shoulder, your right elbow, and your wrist. And I couldn't get past my elbow. I'm like, wait, what's going on? Like I just couldn't feel anything. Or I don't know, it just felt like this block. I didn't have like words for it at first. But then I'm like, what is happening? And so I moved my arm, and I realized my lower arm is asleep. So quite literally, there was no sensation there. And that was just felt like such a win also, because when you're doing those body scans, I wasn't totally certain whether I was like actually feeling those different spots, or if you're just kind of imagining a map of your body in your head and like tracing it that way. And so that was just that was great confirmation that like, oh no, I'm actually feeling each of these places, and that connection to my own body is being rebuilt, and that those new neural pathways are forming every day, and that it's not just what happens up here. Like the mind body is so much broader than that, and it's so important to look at that all holistically. And that's I'm so grateful for any of the practices that I've found, including my yoga school. It's just amazing, and they really helped heal me, and everyone who was at that training was part of my recovery, and I'll always have gratitude for that.
I love that. I love that you really dove into making sure that you were healing yourself holistically. I think that's so beautiful. So now, your murals. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I highly recommend that for anyone who's just looking to bring some peace to their nervous system. Yoga Nidra it's a beautiful practice, and it's a very ancient technique, and it also just feels really yummy. Like you just lie in bed and get as cozy as possible, and then compartmentally shut down different parts of your body. And they say that, they've done a bunch of research about it. They say that 45 minutes of yoga nidra is as good as a 3-hour nap. So that's pretty nice.
I believe that with neuro-linguistic programming, one of the things that we discuss is putting your brain on a different wavelength is one of the most important parts of helping to reprogram your brain for different types of learning. And that was one of the suggestions, was yoga nidra. So I'm very curious about it now, because it's not something that I've tried yet. And so I think that would be really cool.
It isn't something you've tried yet?
I have not.
Okay, I've done I'll send you some practices that I like.
Okay, I've done body scan meditations and stuff, but that they were necessarily titled Yoga Nidra or whatever.
Yeah, or NSDR scripts. It's usually the same thing.
Okay, yeah.
Mm.
So I'm just curious, your murals are across all sorts of continents and communities. Um, how has the process of connecting with people through your art become part of your healing? Has that been a big part of your healing as you've grown?
I would say that today my art is more than it's ever been about storytelling, about just what I'm trying to communicate through the art and bringing communities together, connecting people. And that's always what I've really loved to do also, is to like, I ask all my mural clients, how do you want this painting to make you feel? Like, what are the emotions that you'd like people to be left with after experiencing this? And that led me to a way deeper exploration of kind of how we can design our environments to affect our nervous systems and our physiology and all of that. And gone way down the rabbit hole of like, there's a whole field of study called syntonics, which is about how different colors and different light waves, light frequencies affect our nervous systems and affect our bodies. And so obviously as a visual artist and a TBI survivor and a yoga teacher and all of this, like that's just such a natural intersection of all of those things. And so, yeah, on some level, my art always has been about creating a vibe, about creating like a beautiful, uplifting space to be in. That was what I was gravitating towards even before I knew why. And now I have a lot of intention behind that of like, and so last year I did a mural in a school that when I talked to the principal, asked that exact same question, what impression would you like people to be left with? Would you like the students to be left with? And he said, I want them to feel like they're coming home. And I'm like, that's beautiful. Let's do it. Especially because like I always am talking about that idea of coming home to your own body, which feeling safe in your environment, feeling safe in your nervous system, it's all related. And so, yeah, that's completely where it's at for me right now. And then like the mural that Shannon helped me with last year is very much about representing that specific community. And we had all these elements included that were local to the area and to the city, and then also huge diversity of people represented in it, including diversity of abilities. And we included a piece that specifically speaks to neurodiversity because we're both left a little neurospicy after our various struggles. And that was so meaningful to be able to like create message-based art that isn't solely like activism. I'm not calling out one specific thing or trying to like shift the needle in that way. It's more just like creating space for these things, giving them a platform. And yeah, that felt beautiful to have that opportunity. And that's what I'm continuing to explore in my projects this year, is just like, yeah, what can I say with my art in a way that helps people and creates an impact?
I'm guessing that ties into what are you working on now that excites you, and how does it reflect the artist and person you think?
So very exciting. This coming week, I'm actually starting a mural in Eau Claire, Wisconsin at the PepsiCo facility. Really, Pepsi, the Pepsi. And so that's really exciting that like that momentum is still carrying me forward in that way. And then I'm doing a lot of outreach and networking and marketing towards my primary goal right now is to work with more wellness centers, yoga studios, community spaces, healing spaces, because I'm like, that just, it ties into what I'm creating and what I'm exploring so beautifully. And like, that's where I feel that I kind of have the most ability to do good, make change with my art, make positive change. So that is becoming my focus more and more, is the storytelling, the community art, and the healing art, for sure.
If someone listening is facing a life-altering challenge or a forced reinvention, what wisdom would you want to leave with them today?
I think that like it's fine to have an awareness and to mourn the things that we've lost, but to also create space for new things coming into our life, things that we've gained. People always ask me, it's funny how often I get this question, that like, what percentage are you back to normal? What percentage do you have of the brain that you used to have? And my answer is, I'm never going to have the brain that I used to have. But, and this is very true, that like in a lot of ways I'm the strongest I've ever been. So I would say just to remember that we're always growing and changing, and that life isn't static, and that letting go is a part of welcoming new beautiful things into your life, even when it's painful, even when it's really painful, and feels like everything is falling apart. It's creating space for possibilities and opportunities that wouldn't have been possible before that. And I don't know if that's corny, of like, you never know what's coming. But yeah, it's true. There's been so much that has come into my life in these last few years that I never could have predicted. And there are things that I lost. There are deficits that are going to be with me for the rest of my life. But that doesn't mean that there's nothing that I gained, including like, I mean, I'm just so blessed. I have such an amazing support system. And my brother was living out in Oregon at the time. And when I had my accident, he basically packed up and moved back. Decided he needed to be closer to family. And now we're living in the same city. And I'm super grateful for it. We've always kind of wanted that opportunity to live near each other again as adults. But that was just clarifying for him that he's like, I need to be with family. And so, yeah, that's just an example of like, it'll take things away, but that doesn't mean it won't also give you things, contribute to your life in other ways.
So beautiful. So our next to last question is always the same for everyone. Our podcast is named In the Black, and it's talking about being in a positive place in your life and overcoming something that put you in the red, which was in some sort of deficit. So in your own life, what does being in the black look like for you?
Creative freedom, creative flow, creative opportunity. I don't think there's anything that I put on a higher pedestal than flow. I think the ability to create without restrictions, or create in a way that is unlocking new things both in your own brain and in your life and in the world around you, like that is that's creation in its purest form. That is, I really think that that's the kind of the essence of life. So the fact, like I said, I didn't lose my will or ability to create. I didn't lose my ability to design and conceptualize creative projects. And every year that gets even stronger. And I don't feel like that was taken away from me. I feel like I'm just beginning. And so, I am in the black. I am not at a deficit in that way, but it's more that like I have something to build on, that will continue to expand, that every year going forward, I will have an even larger margin of beautiful things coming my way, and yeah, just wins from all of this.
Well, you are a beautiful human, and just I feel so at ease talking to you. Going down the yoga path and being a yoga teacher, I feel definitely is fitting. So that's amazing. Where can our listeners find you?
Yeah, I am everywhere online. My art name is Sylvia Esol, SylviaEsol, and then .art is my website. That's how you find me on Instagram. So Sylvia Esol, you'll find me.
Thank you for coming on today.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. It's always nice to have this opportunity to talk about what happened to me, but in an inspiring way, in a way that's looking towards the future and what did we gain from this, and not just oh, this bad thing happened to me.
That is the goal.
So
We
thank you for
always
the
want to see.
opportunity.
Well,
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of In the Black. I hope today's story left you feeling inspired and reminded of the incredible strength that lies in each of us. Our guest today has taken her toughest challenges and transformed them into something beautiful, reminding us all that even in the darkest moments, there's always a way to find light in the world.
If you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to subscribe and share In the Black with another woman who could use a little encouragement. Together, we're building a community of passion, purpose, and power. Until next time, stay strong, stay inspired, and remember, your story matters. Your choices change things, and being your most authentic self can and will change the world around you.